everybody. You may have heard George say I spent 16 years at Microsoft very early on. And when I left there, which was in about 2004, I vowed that I would never use PowerPoint again. And so that's it for slides. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in the music streaming space. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Pandora is doing in that space, but without giving a big ad for Pandora, I use that as a precursor to talking about where we think it's all going to go for artists, musicians, and the creative economy over the next 5 to 10 years. So to start off with, the music streaming landscape in Australia is a pretty crowded space. How many of you are streaming music now? Awesome. How many of you are using Pandora? Very warm welcome to all of those very good-looking people who are using Pandora. Hopefully by the end of today, a few more of you will be interested enough to check us out. But to understand why, 23 players in the music streaming landscape in Australia right now. Most of them have been active in Australia for around 8 or 9 years, so you know, it's been around for quite some time. But given that it is such a crowded space, it's kind of useful to think about it in categories. There are 3 core categories of music streaming companies. And as those of you who are in the marketing area would know, when you define a category, you do that by looking at the behavior of the customer, or in this case, the listener. How are they behaving when they use your service? And that's how you can formulate what the categories are. So there are 3 ways that people listen to streaming music or audio. The first category is a group of companies or apps that we call the aggregators. Now, the aggregators are a little bit like the portals were in the 90s for content on the internet. A portal, lots of stuff in one place. Probably the best known in Australia right now is TuneIn Radio. A couple to watch, AHA and Stitcher coming up the ranks. They are interesting for 2 reasons. Number 1, the rise of the spoken word. So podcasts on steroids, and particularly the Stitcher AHA apps are very interesting in the landscape and where they're going and who's invested in them. TuneIn Radio, fantastic for expats. Rebroadcasting hundreds of thousands of radio streams from around the world. So that's the first category of aggregators. Now the second category will be pretty familiar, I expect, to a lot of you. It's the on-demand category. And this is the most crowded in the landscape. About 17 or 18 players here. Probably Spotify being the most commonly known in the on-demand category. But you know, Deezer, Audio used to be in this category, Rhapsody, there's a lot of movement going on here. Now the on-demand category is characterized by exactly that. The music is on demand. It is at the command of the people who are using these applications. Now it's again really interesting for a couple of reasons. People who identify as a music lover love the on-demand space. Now, these are people who probably bought vinyl. They have a lot of CDs that are probably in their roofs right now. They've been interested in the music category for a long time. They love the on-demand space because they have the knowledge and the understanding of how to program, how to lean forward and program their own listening experience. Also fantastic in this category is music for the person who knows exactly what it is that they want to listen to. This track, this artist, this label, this catalogue, this collection, this playlist. If you know exactly what it is that you want to listen to, on demand is a great category, plenty of toys. Leaning forward, music lovers. Now the third category is streaming radio. And obviously this is where Pandora plays in the landscape. Now streaming radio is almost the antithesis of the on-demand category. We in fact are entirely complementary in what we're looking for in our listeners and how we monetize and present our services broadly to the market. At Pandora, we are after the passive listening non-music lover. In short, what that means is that we are after the 80% of the population that wants to walk into a room or sit in a car, push a button, and just have music come out. Busy people, lives to lead, families to raise, exercise to do, food to eat, jobs to go to. This is the Pandora radio listening audience. And so we are in fact very complementary to the other audio categories that are in the market. And we do see some overlap, but of course looking for that passive listening non-music lover gives Pandora the greatest capacity to build scale and volume in our business model. More than 300 million registered users in the US, 90 million people listening to Pandora to consume music in this radio format every day, and not too far off 4 million now in the ANZ landscape, which I was lucky enough to start in November of 2012. Our mission is to redefine radio. You know, we are here to be a better version of a traditional media company. And if our growth continues the way that we're growing, adding about 20,000 registered users a week, then we're on track, as is our goal, to become Australia's largest radio network. So how does Pandora work, and what builds scale into our model? Pandora is run off the back of something called the Music Genome Project. And it's worth looking at that on Wiki or somewhere out there to really understand how it works. But it is a musical taxonomy that allows us to describe all music using 450 attributes. Every single piece of music in the world can be described using words. And when we get a piece of music at Pandora, the first thing that happens is that a human being listens to it, a musical analyst, about 18, 20 years of training. They listen to the music, they tag it with 450 attributes. They describe the voice, the instrumentation, the tone, the timbre, the background, everything about that piece of music. So that track, in fact, has its own DNA, its own musical fingerprint attached to it. That track and the data are ingested into the Music Genome Project, and it sits there waiting for a Pandora listener to come along. So along comes a Pandora listener. More than 85% of sessions are now instigated from a mobile device. The first time Pandora listener logs in, they receive a unique identifying number and can listen to their Pandora stations from any device or car that they're sitting in. Now, when that new listener comes along, it's a very simple interface. You just do one thing. You give us the name of a song, an artist, or a genre that you love. Most people tend to start with some kind of musical memory. Your wedding song, a song from your youth, a song that you remember from a happy time in your life. I know the first Pandora station I ever started was with a song that I kissed the first boy I ever kissed too, and this will date me. It was Love Cats by The Cure. So you just put that one song in, but we don't see the song. We see the fingerprint. We see the science and the maths of the song itself. And at that point, what Pandora does is it queues up 70 tracks that have similar fingerprints. So we play the sound, the fingerprint that you're asking us for, and then the next most adjacent, and the next most adjacent, and the next most adjacent. And each track is linked to the one before it by the DNA of the music itself. And so over time, we get to know you. And we get to know you when you use the thumbs in Pandora. If we play a track that you like, you give us a thumbs up, and we think, oh, okay, you've just given us a bit of information about what you like. If we play a track that you don't like, you give us a thumbs down. We remove that track from that station, and once again, you've given us information. We're always reshuffling that queue of 70. So every time you give us a piece of data, we reshuffle the songs that are coming up on your station. And so over time, unlike terrestrial radio, we promise to play only music that you love. And so that's a little bit about how Pandora works. We are ad-funded and we are everywhere. So as I said, mobile devices, but Pandora is now shipping in 63% of new cars in Australia. because listening to music or the radio in the car is where the most passive listening takes place of all. More than 300 consumer devices in your living room, around your house, high-end stereos, set-top boxes, gaming stations and TVs. The battle of the living room is where the audio battle will move to next alongside of the car. So we're laying the groundwork to do that. So our free, personalized streaming model is one of the reasons why we believe that Pandora at its heart is really a data company. And it's that data, we believe, that will power the creative economy and the new business model for musicians for the next 5 to 10 years. And I'll just talk a little bit about that. We don't really talk too much about this when we go out, but given the nature of this event today, I think it's probably appropriate to spend a couple of minutes on where we think it's going. So in terms of the musicians and artists themselves, we are licensed here in Australia by APRA AMCOS, who are the not-for-profit collecting society of royalties for artists and musicians, and RMNZ in New Zealand. We pay 2 royalties on every track that we spin, one to the composer and one to the recording artist. We remit those to APRA AMCOS and they distribute that money back into the creative economy, to the artists and musicians themselves. But obviously we haven't been living under a rock, and a lot of us know that there is a lot of contention in that model, that artists are wondering whether or not they're being compensated fairly for the creative soul and the spirit that they're putting into the music that we all get to listen to every day. And you know, it's a good question. When digital economies get shaken up, when pure plays disrupt traditional models, it always takes a little bit of time moving from a traditional business model to a new business model. And you know, when I go out and talk to artists, I say, I've been on this ride before. You know, I was chief executive of the digital division inside of Fairfax, a very traditional company trying to cross the chasm over into digital business models and revenue streams. And I've seen this happen before. It's about a 6 or 7 year cycle, generally, as we transition from an old economy to a new digital-based economy. And this is exactly what's happening to music right now. So an artist 8-10 years ago selling a CD or an album might see $8 to $10 out of the sale of that physical item. And now, of course, in digital streaming, where we're talking about hundreds and millions, even billions of plays to a widely distributed audience, the monetization of that model is vastly different. 0.000 something% or cents in a track. And they're wondering what happens. So where do we think all of this is going at Pandora? We believe that the value in music is in the data that is driving these streaming services and the scale and the volume that we can bring to that market by having a free personalized service. About in November, not last year but the year before, we opened up the Music Genome Project to musicians and artists for the first time, for free. If you are an artist that's spinning in Pandora, you can log into the artist marketing platform and think of it like the Google Analytics of music in the Pandora world. You can see your audience. What are they thumbing up? What are they thumbing down? Who do they think you're like? What artists do they like? And importantly, demographic. Where are they? Who are they? How old are they? What gender are they? And what do they like? And so an artist who's thinking about touring in the United States, for example, could essentially go into the artist marketing platform and plan an entire tour. Artists who didn't realize where their fans were. Now, you declare yourself a fan in Pandora when you thumb up, or when you station start with a name. So when you start one of your 100 Pandora stations with a song or an artist, you have declared yourself a fan. When you thumb up, you have declared yourself a fan. So that's now been available freely in the market for over a year. And it is our intention to continue to build on top of that artist marketing platform to further drive a connection between the artist and the fan. And when you think about that, that is actually a business model that is thousands of years old, called the patron of the arts. Even way back, hundreds of years ago, the patrons of the arts were the fans of the creators that essentially funded the creation of artistic pursuits so the broader community could benefit. We believe that the patron of the arts model will be revived. And the patron of the arts at Pandora is where we connect a band directly to their fan. So building on top of the artist marketing platform, we released a set of features over the last year that enable bands to sell tickets to their shows directly to their fans on Pandora. We ran a trial of this in Australia a week ago with Odessa, who are doing a national tour of Australia right now. We worked with their management to secure pre-release tickets to the shows across Australia. First, they released their tickets in pre-sale to their own fan base. Second, they released the tickets pre-sale to Pandora. We sold out the shows before the tickets got to general sale. The band have then put on additional shows to meet the demand. It just goes to show what happens when, instead of using a scattergun or gunshot approach to marketing your creative services, your music, in this case to your fans, if you can directly connect to them, you get a far greater return. We released artist audio messages. We're about to move that into self-service. If you are a spinning artist in Pandora, you'll be able to record a message that you tag onto one of your own tracks. Hi, this is John from Boy and Bear. We released this new song. Here's the inspiration for the song. Thanks for being a fan, and the track plays. Being able to ensure that the bands and the fans can directly connect to bring back the patron of the arts. The truth is that recorded music has been a loss leader for musicians for 2 or 3 years. The cheese moved some time ago into live events, into merchandise, and into what we're seeing as new forms of digital download, biographies, discussions. You know, there are 200,000 girls out there right now that'll pay 99 cents to see an iPhone tour of somebody from One Direction's fridge, or look at their dog. These are the new forms of digital download. And all of these business models are enabled, like the patron of the arts, by connecting the band, the creator, directly to the fan, the person who said, I am more likely, through using my thumb, to give you money in appreciation of the services that you provide because I really like what you do. The casual audience was never going to pay. And so that's a little bit about where we think it's all going to go in music. Pandora is not the only company that is using data to drive value back into the creative economy. The difficult bit is getting through the discussions, that chasm between the old business models and the new business models. But that's why we like the opportunity to come out and talk about what we're doing. So thank you for your attention.